Ever since I was a teenager, my dream was always to buy some land out in the country and begin a more self-sufficient lifestyle. The dream of living in the country has come true, but there are some aspects about homesteading that I wish I was more prepared for before we went ahead and moved out here. The first aspect is time. Before I ever had any farm animals, some people told me that having them only takes about 15 minutes a day, and you can just do your feeding in the morning and everything's done. While this may be true for some days, there are other days that are going to be very time-consuming. You may need to fix a chicken coop or fix up a fence. You might have a sick animal. If you decide to breed animals, you might have a mother who's going to have her baby soon and you need to be around. If you're working full-time, this can be very challenging. So I encourage anyone who's planning on starting a homestead to keep this in mind when they are planning out how they're going to go about starting their homestead, and if they have to work at the same time, how they're going to plan for that. In a lot of ways, having a homestead is just a lifestyle change. So you might just not go to the movies as often, or your evening hobbies might be changed to taking care of animals and doing some yard work. But just knowing ahead of time that the more involved you get in your homestead, the more time it's going to take. So the more vegetables or fruit you want to grow, or the more types of animals you want to have, are going to take up more of your time and energy. So just be realistic with how much time you have and do your research to find out how much time each project might take. The next aspect to consider is the commute. Generally, when you are buying land for a homestead, it's going to be farther from urban and suburban areas. So it may be farther from your work and farther from friends and family. So you'll have to consider this when you are thinking about your time and how much time you have. The next aspect to be aware of are pests. Pests love your farm animals, so you need to work diligently to keep them away. In your barn where you store your hay and your feed, you might accidentally almost touch a scary spider or a snake, so you need to be aware of that. You may be stepping on fire ant hills in your yard. You may find ticks on you all the time, and you'll need to be diligent with checking yourself for ticks. You'll have rodents, so you'll need to be very careful about how you store your feed and even your compost. I don't recommend having an open-air compost. That will attract lots of rodents and other animals like raccoons, which all of these things are not good for your farm animals. So I'm working on making a compost bin with the same type of galvanized steel bin I use for my feed. It can be very easy to get lazy about keeping things clean where your animals are living, but it's very important to keep everything clean and to give the animals what they need, like chickens need dust baths, because if you don't keep a clean environment, they're going to get sick. So you will want to allow yourself a lot of time to research how to keep pests away from certain types of animals. How is this going to work with my homestead system? If you're doing some kind of regenerative agriculture system, that's going to help a lot, but that's not the only thing that you need to do. When you're doing your best to live a natural lifestyle where you're staying away from pesticides, it can be pretty tricky to figure out how to get rid of pests that are making your animals sick. So it's going to take a lot of research and trying your best. The next aspect to consider is the reality of predators. I was happily free-ranging my chickens until one day I lost one to a hawk. Then I was keeping the chickens in a poorly made mobile coop, and finally predators figured out how to get in. So I recommend to not go cheap on your animal shelters. Make sure they're protected, and also have a system for predators, whether that be a guard dog or electric fence. Do your research. The next aspect to consider kind of ties in with the last and making sure you have high quality shelters, and that is to make sure you know what equipment and material you need for your homestead projects and to budget them appropriately. For example, a fence is not in our budget, so our family dog gets walked on a leash. So if guard dogs are in your predator plan, you'll need to budget for a high quality fence if it's not already on your property. Another thing you might need to budget for is some kind of equipment to deal with all of the beautiful wildlife growth that also gets grown to the point of not being able to walk through it. I get scratched by thorns pretty much every day. We don't have a bush hog or any kind of big equipment to take care of the growth on our property, but we do make paths and we can handle that with small equipment like a lawnmower and just some hand pruners. So keep in mind, if you don't have the budget for some big equipment, you may be doing any necessary land maintenance in a more labor-intensive way. The final thing I wanted to bring up when it comes to homestead considerations is vacation. Just because you are loving your dream life on your homestead doesn't mean you might not want to take a trip every once in a while. It also doesn't mean you might not have something important that is far away and you need to go out of town for a little bit. So you'll need to think about all these things and plan, how are you going to leave town? How long can you leave town? And do I need to hire someone? Do I need to ask one of my friends or a neighbor I trust or a family member I trust? So consider this when you are deciding what kind of animals you're getting and what kind of vacations or trips you might want to take. If you want a dairy cow, but you also love going to Europe a few times a year, this is going to be something you'll really need to plan for. On the other hand, if you just take weekend trips every once in a while and you have certain types of animals that you may not need to care for every single day, it might be easy to find ways to set things up for them. Now, this video was not made to discourage anyone from homesteading. This was actually so that you could plan ahead. I wanted to share some things that I hadn't really thought of before until I experienced them myself. I love homesteading and I love living in the country. I really am living the dream, but it definitely requires a lifestyle change and a change of mindset also. A country homesteading lifestyle is going to have different priorities than someone living in the suburbs or the city, but you will also have different rewards. Thanks for watching. I hope this video was encouraging and inspiring on your homestead journey.